Hello, my name is David Broussard and welcome back to the Office 365 Bootcamp. In a previous video, we talked about Power BI, and today I have a special guest, Larry Clark of Catapult Systems, to talk about some of the technical aspects of Power BI that I think will be interesting to you. Welcome, Larry. How are you doing today?
Great, David. Great to be here.
I'm glad to have you as well. So as you remember in my video that I did before, I had created an Excel spreadsheet. I had a pivot chart in it, and I then took that pivot chart and published it out to Power BI.
Right.
But I learned in that process that when I did that, the data wasn't live. And so if I wanted to make a change, I actually had to go out, reload the Excel workbook, republish it to Power BI so that my data was correct all the time. So is there a way using Power BI that I can make my reports have live data?
Let me show you. I've got a PowerBI.com report sitting here, and I can do that right here in the report. So I'll go to my workspace, and then I'll go to Data Sets down here. What you want to do is find the data set that you're working with. In this case, I'm working with City of Austin employees, a City of Austin employees data set that I've consumed from an OData feed published by the City of Austin. And if I go to the Schedule Refresh menu here, that'll bring up a screen that enables me to manipulate the scheduled refresh of this data. And so I can specify exactly how often I'd like to have this data refreshed. So David, in order to schedule a refresh, you would, as I said, go to your data set, go to the Scheduled Refresh menu item, and it'll bring you to this screen. I've got various data sets here. I want to schedule a refresh. I click Keep Your Data Up to Date, refresh frequency, daily or weekly. If I want to schedule hourly data refresh, I'll need to subscribe to Power BI Pro.
Okay. So without Power BI Pro, I can still
do it
refresh
daily. I could still do it weekly. And
excellent.
You know what? For 80% of data sets, that's just fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, if I want to talk to, say, a SQL server, though, do I need anything special to do that?
If you are moving beyond just Power BI Desktop, which is the counterpart on your desktop of Excel, just the data analysis capabilities of Excel, and you're publishing to PowerBI.com, which I've done here, that's hosted in the cloud. Your SQL Server data set might be up there if you're using Azure.
But it's probably inside my firewall.
Inside your firewall. So what you're going to need is a gateway. A data gateway. Microsoft provides a data gateway. You can download the software and install it on one of your machines. Probably best to work with IT before you publish one of those. So you'll connect either directly to your data set if you can get to your data set from PowerBI.com, meaning it's already in the cloud, or you can use a data gateway. So if you want to say use a data gateway, you would specify exactly the gateway address, and then connect that up. And that'll securely connect from Power BI in the cloud through an encrypted connection to that data gateway software. You'll configure a connection from that data gateway software to your SQL server, and it'll be able to read that data and refresh your data on the .com site.
Excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to know. So when I made my report, I learned about all the different visualizations of the pie chart and the bar chart and tree maps and things like that. But what I discovered was difficult was, how do I make it to where the visualizations make sense to people? How do I make it so that data really pops so that the end user can really understand what it is they're looking at?
You want to tell a story with your data. So let me show you an example. We'll come back to data visualizations. That's a key feature of Power BI. We'll come back to that. But let's talk about this report in particular, which is not all that beautiful at the moment. I would like to depict a couple of things with this data, and I'd also like to empower my users to interact with this data, to sort of ask it specific questions, and get those answers without those people either having to come back to me or come back to IT or ask somebody to redesign this report. So there are a few things that I can do. I'm on PowerBI.com here. I can edit this report directly in PowerBI.com, or I can open it in Power BI Desktop, which I also have open. I have a few more tools in Power BI Desktop. You notice that the colors of this bar chart, while they're telling a story, maybe they could tell it a little bit more, a little bit more detail.
Mhm.
One of the features that Microsoft has added to Power BI within the last few months is the ability to build in diverging, more than just a minimum and maximum data color, and they call it diverging data colors. So if I click that on, you'll see that I've got minimum is set to red, maximum is set to this really bright green, which my 12-year-old son would love, and a pair of athletic shorts. And then my center is white. So I've got a much greater contrast, much greater visual contrast in the colors from maximum to minimum here. What we're depicting here in this chart is the average of hourly salary rate, the average of hourly pay, and the average hourly of and the average length of service for the city of Austin. So you can see here for the mayor and city council, who are elected officials and by definition aren't going to be there for years and years at a time, the average length of service, see I'm hovering over this bar so I can get some more detail about this, the average length of service is only 1.29 years, whereas over here in the small and minority business resource office, the average length of service is way up at 11 years. Over here, wireless communication services, average length of service 9.3, and something in the middle like Austin Transportation, average length of service is 6.
So I can really see the data a little bit better now.
Right.
Not just in that it's a bar chart, but I can actually use the colors to help tell that story.
Right.
I like
So
that.
we're depicting two different fields of data on the same chart, and we're doing it with color in a way that really makes as you said, makes the separation between the different data sets pop.
Very clear.
Another thing that I talked about is in empowering our end users, empowering the users of this data to be able to ask questions of the data and drill down a little bit. These are actually interactive, so you can click on one of these, for example, Office of the City Auditor. If I click on this, you'll notice down here I've got average of hourly rate, average of length of service and job, and here I've got a bar chart depicting average of annual salary and length of service and job by staffing level, executive, manager, supervisor, council appointed, and worker. If I drill down on Office of the City Auditor, you'll see that the other visualization here was filtered by that. And I've actually got my Edit Interactions button already turned on. If you click in the Format menu, Edit Interactions, you can take control over how the various visualizations in your report interact. So if someone clicks on a bar or a line or a cluster, a spot in one of your charts, you can tell it how to modify the other visualizations in that chart. So if I don't want, for example, clicking on here to affect this, I can click the little none, the international symbol for no, little none icon here and the none icon here, and that way I now have no interaction. I've got interaction between the top and the bottom bar chart, but I've got no interaction between the top bar chart and this average hourly rate, average length of service.
So those linkages happen automatically for me when you plot those reports on the same
They
canvas?
are default behavior, yes.
Excellent.
And so as you build these reports and you want to tell a story with your data, maybe I want to leave a card that says, here's that, and maybe instead of just using the default title, I would actually put a title on here that makes sense. Maybe I want the average of hourly rate card to always depict the overall average hourly rate across the city of Austin, and the same for the length of service and job. Then I could add another card that shows the average hourly rate, average service and job, 2 more cards, for what you picked in context.
Okay, that makes sense.
So there's a lot that you can do with design in these reports, and Power BI provides a lot of design, a lot of great ways to tell a story. You can also, just another thought, you can also in Power BI add text to your reports. Arrows, stars, explosions, things like that. In dashboards, you can add videos, you can add links, you can embed web pages. So you can do all sorts of things in Power BI to really brand your site, and tell a story with your reports.
You mentioned lines earlier, things like percentile lines and
Yep.
averages. Can you show us how to do that?
Sure, that's another feature that Microsoft has added recently, and it's over here in the design well. It's called analytics. I don't know how well this is going to come across in the video, but if you click on the analytics button here,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the type of visualization that you're using, in this case I'm using a bar chart, I can add things like a constant line. So for this particular data set, $50,000 might be, $50,000 might be a controversial number that the news has been talking about recently. So let's add a constant line at $50,000. 50,
Would be $20 an hour.
oh, right, sorry. This is hourly at $20 an hour. To show exactly where that line is, how many employees are above that, how many employees are below that. I've also got statistical lines like a minimum. I can add a minimum, I can add a maximum, I can add an average, and I could add a median. And of course I've got control over these colors, so my median, maybe I'll make it a black line, and my average line, maybe I'll make it red so it pops out a little bit better.
Okay.
So now I've got, not only do I have the data itself represented, I've got mins and maxes, the average data, the median, and then a specific data point that I wanted to point out while I'm telling my story. If I had a line chart here, I could add a prediction. And if I had a line chart, I could also do a linear regression through a line chart to show, well, it's the same thing, a linear regression through the line chart to do if you've got a line that's going like this, maybe I can put a line through it that's straight. I don't have an example of that here, but pretty straightforward and a great feature to be able to add just with a few clicks to your report. Again, telling a story with your data.
Now, you showed the visualization earlier that had kind of all the boxes on the screen.
Sure.
Let's take a look at that and kind of talk me through what's showing up here.
This is a visualization from Microsoft Research, and it's called Sanddance. What it enables you to do is really interact with your data. So instead of average of annual salary here, I'll pick average of age. And what that does is it shows us in the fire department, the health and human services department in the city of Austin, human resources, law, mayor and city council. Now this is showing us, you can see that health and human services here has a lot more young people, has a lot more youth, fewer seasoned employees than maybe the mayor and the city council. No offense, mayor. Or the office of the city auditor, or the police department. Let's contrast the police department with the fire department. They're actually about the same. Looks like they're about the same.
Okay. Now that's the age of the employees, not necessarily how long they've been
right.
with
That's
the
the
city.
age of the age of the employees. I can also go by ethnicity here. So white, other, Hispanic, black, Asia Pacific Islander, American Indian. So here is, just with one click, you saw the data move around, and now I'm taking a look at the ethnicity of City of Austin employees.
That's fascinating. So you mentioned that this is something that Microsoft Research has put out, right? How do I find more of these visualizations?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I've got a web page on it. The Visuals Gallery. So Power BI. I am a huge fan of Power BI. You might be able to tell.
That's why we have you here.
Yeah, Microsoft really nailed it with this product. One of the great things that they did is, instead of the traditional approach, which Microsoft has taken, I guess they took it with Excel for a long time. They opened it up a little bit, but the traditional approach with any charting, graphing application is they implement the charts and graphs. They implement the visualizations, and they give them to you. And then, the next 18 months later, when they release a new product, 3 years later when they release a new product, hey, we've got a new type of bar chart. We've got a bar chart that's got a line overlaid, so you can have two axes. Isn't that great? Buy this new product. What Microsoft did with Power BI is they opened up that API. And so you can go to, I never remember the URL, I just type in Power BI visuals into a search engine, and this is the visuals library. So I've got I think the last time I counted it was 55 different third-party visuals. There's an infographic designer, a pyramid 3D chart, a bow tie chart, which is terrific for depicting the relationships between two different products or two different data sets.
Yeah, there's some really neat
Facets,
ones on there.
KPIs, a donut chart, a network navigator, that's cool. A time brush, if you've got temporal data, this enables you to zoom in very quickly on specific date ranges visually. It's a terrific visualization. Here's Sandance. I don't need to go through them all, but box and whisker charts for people that use a lot of R. That's a terrific statistical depiction of data. A Sankey chart can be extremely useful for, again, information that flows between states. You can see, for example, if you're depicting calls in a call center, and those call center employees not only pick up the phone and handle calls, but they also handle customer service emails, they handle faxes, maybe they handle social media incidents or social media requests for support. A Sankey chart would enable you to depict exactly how much time an individual is spending in each of those. So you might have calls and then social media posts and then emails depicting who is answering what proportion of those kinds of things. It's a really cool chart type. Again, you might be able to tell that I'm enthusiastic about this stuff, but the fact that Microsoft opened this up and that there are so many visualizations available, some of these are free, most of them are free, others are licensed with a free version, for evaluation, or a free version that's limited feature. But the Microsoft Research Sandance is one of those, and it's one of the cooler ones.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I've learned an awful lot today.
I hope to come back and talk about it more. I could talk for hours on Power BI.
Well, we'll have to do a whole series of videos on this, I
Great.
think. Well, thank you very much for watching this episode of the Office 365 Bootcamp. I'm David Broussard. Thank you very much.